Hi there, and welcome to this week's Business Consult Team webinar. Today, we're excited to dive into our topic, which is thinking like a lender, and we're talking specifically about trade accounts. As you know, the Thinking Like a Lender is a webinar series where we talk about how lenders see your business credit applications, your business credibility, and so on. We do post all of our webinars on our YouTube station, so make sure you subscribe to that channel so you're notified every time we add a video. Of course, anytime you have questions, make sure you submit those. I do review them throughout the webinar and especially at the end. Questions help me know what I need to expand on and can even give us ideas on what we should cover on within our next webinar. Well, let's dive in today. Like I said, our topic is thinking like a lender, and we're talking specifically about trade accounts. Now, some things to remember about trade accounts. Trade accounts or vendor accounts, you hear them both used. They're typically store accounts. They're a little bit different than a business credit card that can be used anywhere, like through Capital One. A trade account is a store account, for instance, with Staples or Home Depot or Tiger Direct. These companies offer in-store credit, and they also will approve a business without a personal guarantee, and even better, they report to the business credit reports. Now, not all business credit accounts report your payments on your business credit. That's important to know and understand. A lot of business owners will call our consult team and say, hey, I have an account with Capital One, or I have an account with this company, but they're not showing on my business credit report. And we'll have this discussion where we help the business owner understand not all business credit accounts are reported, although a majority of creditors do check the business credit when they're underwriting the application. You're right, it's a bit of a catch-22. So, for instance, Capital One will review the business credit when approving the business for the business credit card, but they don't actually report those payments that are made onto the business credit. So it's not building the business credit. It doesn't show anywhere there. There are some credit report or business credit cards that are starting to report on Experian and Equifax, and we hope that happens more and more. But what we do know is a majority of lenders are pulling business credit, but a majority are not reporting positive payments right now. They're reporting late payments. So there are some creditors out there that do report. And we do regular research every month to find out who is reporting, who may have changed their policy, and so on. It is a full-time job. That individual, I should have them on this webinar at some point, just to figuring out who is reporting, who isn't, what it takes to get it approved. That takes a lot of effort. You could read message boards and things like that, but we find a lot of conflicting and incorrect information on those boards. So we do this regular research. Creditors are always changing their policies, and though almost all business creditors check business credit, very few are reporting. Some only report when there are late payments. So that is one of the biggest benefits to the business credit program. Okay, so we're going to go over a couple applications here. Now, keep in mind, the key to your success when applying for trade accounts or vendor accounts is to understand what it takes to get approved. Okay, so you may have to be in business for a little while. You may have to already have a DUNS number or even a PAYDEX score. They may request trade references, which is basically a reference of somebody that you've dealt with and made payments with. Okay, so there are different requirements. So though Staples, for instance, will approve a business without a personal guarantee, unless you have a little bit established credit, we find they don't always approve right away. So there's a system to this. There's a building process where you build the foundation and you build on top of it. Now, as with personal credit, when you started building your personal credit, it was a bit of an uphill climb. If you remember, think back to that time. It's a little bit the same way on the business credit side, although a lot faster. So when on the personal side, you would take that, $500 personal credit card and it would report for a couple of years. You do essentially the same on the business credit side, although once it reports, then you can move on to those better accounts. So what takes years on the personal credit side typically takes 6 months to a year on the business credit side. Okay, well, let's dive in. We've really given some good background here. Like I said, each of these has their own requirements. What we're going to do today is go through the applications and just explain how you can make sure you're filling them out correctly. A lot of these trade accounts or vendor accounts offer what's called net terms. We'll do another webinar on that, but essentially, if you make a purchase today, your payment's not due for another 30 days. So it is a credit account, and it's the payment on that credit account that is reported. Okay, so Tiger Direct, they do offer business credit accounts. It's a net 30 account right here. You can see net 30 terms. And they do have some requirements in order to get approved. It was formerly CompUSA. But when it's time to apply, you'll go to the link that we have in the program and you will start to fill out the application. So when they say first name and last name, this needs to be the individual that is authorized to sign on behalf of the company. So the actual business owner. And then you put the company name, address, and then the company information here. Now, we talked about last week credibility, right? Making sure all your business records are correct. Same thing goes when we're filling out these applications. This name and last name needs to show on your corporate entity document so they can draw that line, so they know that this person applying is authorized to apply on behalf of the company. Again, the business name should match your business license and your other corporate records, so their automated system can quickly just check all the data out, make sure that everything's correct, and get that reporting. Same thing with the address and then the contact information. They're going to run that all against the public records, and it needs to match what is on your business records. Another important thing is that business credit is reported using the business name and the business address. A lot of people assume that it's the EIN number or the DUNS number. It isn't that. And that's why we see a large amount of misreporting on the business credit side. A lot of business owners have DBAs and they have multiple business addresses. If they use multiple, addresses or names, they're going to have multiple business credit profiles. For example, if this trade account reported to Business Experian and they use the DBA name and an address, the account would report using the DBA name and the business address. If they apply with another vendor using the actual corporate name and a different business address, they'll get a completely different file. The issue with that is not all your business credit is going to be on one file. So when people start pulling your business credit, it's going to look like you have less history than you really do. And they can't take into account that you have multiple files. The other issue with that is a creditor has a hard time verifying what the business name really is. What is the real business name? What is the real business address? They all need to match. Let's make it easier on the creditors to give us approvals. Okay. So this is just a simple version of an application that you'll run into. This is an easier one to get. So you fill out the information and you apply for an open account. You'll typically call them or they will call you and they'll talk about issuing net terms. They usually approve right around $1,000 on the first round for a net 30 account. Let's see if we have any questions so far before we go to the next one. Looks like we're good. So we'll keep on going. Remember, you can submit questions. Okay, Staples, this is the net pay account. There's multiple accounts with Staples. So in the program, we outline which one to apply for at which time, so you don't apply at the wrong time and get a decline. If you get a decline, it typically takes about 3 to 6 months before you can apply again. And it depends on the creditor's policy, and some of these creditors have the same underwriter. So if you get declined with Staples, you might also get declined with Home Depot because they use the same underwriting company, which is Citigroup. Okay, so we've done our homework. As we've gone through the program, we read what was required in order to qualify for Staples. And then you go to the application because you've got that business credit established. You have all those requirements that we've listed out for you, and it's time to apply. So you write the email address, and these guys, Citibank, does a great job of giving you information. And then a marketing source code. It's if you received a special offer, so you can leave that space blank. This is a good place to put your actual legal business name. This is your entity. If you're a corporation, an LLC, those type of entities, you'll enter that there. Now, if you have a DBA, if you're ABC Inc. doing business as George's Lumber Store, then you'll put George's Lumber Store here. It's important that you apply correctly. We just talked about this. You don't want to have multiple names on different applications and have everything mismatched. If you put the actual legal name and DBA name in the right fields every time, you're not going to get multiple profiles. And then again, put in the correct business address and phone number. Put in a good phone number. Don't put in your personal cell phone. They may call to verify. You know what? They also have software, just like we do, where we know if it's a business phone number or a personal cell phone number, something to that effect. And then you'll enter the type of entity. So if you haven't filed a real entity, you're a sole proprietorship, we highly recommend that you file a real business entity, of course, when you're building business credit. So those could be a partnership, an LLC, corporation, nonprofit. Make sure you have the paperwork for a nonprofit or a government entity. And once again, you would need that paperwork. Then you put in your taxpayer ID, or you also know that as EIN number. You can put your DUNS number in here. Some of these accounts, we highly recommend that you don't apply unless you have, for instance, a DUNS number established. This is not a required field. You can't see a star right there. But with Staples, we do suggest that you have a DUNS number. And we go into more detail about that throughout the business credit program. You'll answer this question, tell them whether it really is a home-based business or not. They have Google, they have access to maps just like everybody else. So if your business address is an actual home address, then you put yes. Are you a franchise? Meaning, is it a Quiznos franchise or something like that? And then if you're a school or government, you'd enter that question. Number of employees. Remember, your number of employees shows on your D&B report, probably on your Experian and Equifax, depending on what's reported so far. Make sure that information matches. And then the number of cards you want. If you have employees and you want them to have a Staples card, you would put the number. In business since. So this can be the day you incorporated or the day that you opened your bank account. I like the incorporated date for this number. And keep in mind that shows on your D&B report. So you want to make sure the information on your D&B report is correct. And then annual sales. Don't inflate these numbers. When you sign your application, you are signing that the information you supplied is true and correct. Inflating or changing any data could leave you legally liable. So you want to make sure that you're putting in the correct information. Is a purchase order required? If you remember when you were in school and you had to go purchase goods for the school, they'd give you a purchase order. I don't know if all of you had that experience. That's an example of a purchase order. If a company has given you a purchase order and you're an employee or something to that realm, then you would have a purchase order and you would click yes. Are you tax exempt, meaning a school or a nonprofit? And you'll know if you are. Are you a member of Staples Rewards? You can be or not, and it doesn't really matter here. It's not going to affect your application. On the last one, your business billing information. You want to put a billing contact name. This does not have to be the business owner. So it's not critical that the business owner is on on this field. You can put your actual billing contact name. If you have a parent company, you'll put this there. Most companies won't have a parent company to enter there, so don't feel bad about leaving that space blank. And then your company banking information. This is just like a reference, and they don't do a lot of research into it, but they do want to know that you have a business bank account. At the end of the application, the officer is putting their signature. So they're typing their name, last name, and their title. That's essentially your signature. And like I talked about, you're confirming, that you read their disclosures, their policies, that the information is correct, and you hit continue. So that's another common version of a trade account application. And I wanted to show you that because it's important to see here that your social security number was not requested. If you go back to the business owner information, it does not ask for the individual social security number. That's because this is approved on business credit only, which is a wonderful thing. A lot of business owners forget that these type of net 30 accounts can be very helpful, that they can alleviate some cash flow and really help the business grow. As the business credit is established and your approval amounts get higher and higher, it's even more helpful, to have these cards where you could have net 30, 60, 90, 120 days. It gives you a little more time to pay so you can utilize the funds in the way that you need them. So it is nice to step back, look at your business and go, how could I really use these net accounts to help my business? Now, like I said, all business creditors are checking the business credit. So whether or not you're doing this just to get trade accounts, when you're going for your lines and loans, those creditors are checking, and it does have an impact. It's a sad day when a business owner comes to us and says, I found out that I have negative information on my business credit report when I was applying for the business loan, and I was declined. Even though I have revenue, even though my personal credit is good, I got declined on information on my business credit report. We want to prevent that from happening. Okay, another example I wanted to show you is that we want to build business credit correctly. And like I said, there's multiple cards with Staples, there's multiple cards with Home Depot. Sometimes a customer will see within the business credit building program a company name like Home Depot. They'll Google Home Depot, pick one of the cards of their choosing, and then they see that, a social security number is required. That's why it's important to follow the links in the program. Because there's multiple cards and we know which ones require a personal guarantee and which ones don't. This is a business revolving credit card with Home Depot, and they do require a social security number. When you enter your social security number on a business credit application, you are personally guaranteeing that business credit. What that means is if the financing goes delinquent, seriously delinquent, you are personally liable for the debt that the business has accumulated on this credit card. That also means that the late payments can show on your personal credit report. Another factor is some business credit cards or trade accounts even report the account on the personal credit, whether it is late or not. So it's important to understand that and use a personal guarantee only when you really need it. Sometimes customers do move forward and they personally guarantee certain trade accounts, but we walk them through that strategically. If they really needed a high approval on a Home Depot card, they had good personal credit, and we knew they'd get what they needed, then we could move forward. But we're always weighing those options. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions. We don't have any questions at this point. Okay, so we talked about this personal guarantee. You can apply with a personal guarantee, just use it wisely. I would advise you to consult with the team so they can walk you through that. Keep those inquiries to a minimum so you can get as many approvals as possible when you're going for those lines and credit cards. So that is what I wanted to review. Like I said, our goal is to build that business credit. So you can see here This is a sample of a Dun & Bradstreet report. You can see the business name, the DUNS number, the information. When you submit those trade account applications, they are cross-referencing your application to the information that they find on your D&B report, Business Experian, and Business Equifax. You can see your scores and ratings. Business credit, as we've talked about, is very much a black or white rating system. If your payments are on time, then you have a good score. If they are late, then your score drops. And you can see the general description of the industry that the reporting trade account is in. It is not going to list specifically who is reporting. For instance, if Staples was reporting, they're not going to report the name, but simply the industry, which could be, business supplies or something along those lines. It's important to stay on top of that business credit. So today in review, we have gone over trade accounts and what they are. We've looked at a couple trade account applications. We've talked about how to apply correctly so that you can get approvals, which is know going into it that you have their requirements before applying. We've also talked about that some business credit companies don't actually report your payments regularly on the business credit. There's a small group that do. So it's important to select those that do report in order to build your business credit. But more importantly, almost all lenders and creditors are checking business credit now. So it's important to have that established. As you know, I will post this webinar on our YouTube channel, which you can follow to get notification anytime we put a video on our channel there. If you ever have questions, feel free to reach out to the Business Consult team. We are always here to help, and we are thankful for the opportunity to work with you, our small business owners. Have a wonderful day.